Hello and welcome to Minus the Hangover, a brand new podcast on no and low alcohol drinks with me, Christophe Phillips.
And with me, Pete Mason.
That's right. Minus the Hangover is a weekly podcast exploring no and low alcohol drinks in all their glorious variety. Everything from beers, ciders and wines to kombuchas, tonics. Well, look, there's a lot that we're going to cover over the weeks and months ahead. And look, I've got to say, this is a podcast that not only reaches the parts other podcasts can't reach, but does so, I would say, in a reassuringly inexpensive way, in as much as it's free of cost to you, the listener, as it is free of alcohol. Look, let's do it. Let's get on with the podcast. What have we got on the drinks menu today?
Every week, we're going to be looking at a topic, well, a question really, to do with NoLo drinks.
Yeah.
The kind of questions that people who want to know more about NoLo drinks are asking. And to my mind, the one that is uppermost in people's minds is, why do NoLo drinks cost so much?
Yeah, I would agree. I think that's a really big one. And it's probably the first thing that people think about when they get beyond the question of taste itself.
Absolutely, absolutely. Not only are we talking about that this week, but we're also going to try some drinks, of course.
We are, of course. Yeah, well, look, we always do this, don't we? We've got 3 different drinks that we're going to be kind of giving a review on. I mean, we don't review out of 10. We've talked about that in the last episode where we think that's a little bit arbitrary. We kind of give a thumbs up or a thumbs down if we think it's a drink that we like and would put our money to and buy and actually drink. So the drinks we're going to be doing today are Guinness Zero, Thatchers Zero, so a cider, and Hip Hop CBD Kombucha Cherry and Blackberry.
That is a mouthful.
It certainly is. And will it be a mouthful when we come to drink it? I mean, or is it one to sip?
Let's find out.
Look, it's quite literally time to put our money where our mouths are. So I think we should wet our whistles with our first review of the episode. And it's that big one. It's Guinness Zero, or is it 0.0?
So here we are with Guinness Zero, and I'm pretty sure it is 0, even though it is literally spelt 0.0.
It is spelt 0.0. I'm not just being weirdly pedantic.
Indeed. But let's call it Guinness Zero, because that makes kind of sense. It is Guinness, so it is a stout, and it is, as the name implies, 0 in terms of alcohol. I mean, It actually says not more than 0.05%. It's labelled as being vegan. It's in a 440ml can, 75 calories for those who care about that sort of thing, 6.7 grams of carbs, of which 3.1 grams is sugar. So if you think a teaspoon of sugar is 4 grams,
okay,
it's just under a teaspoon.
That seems pretty low to me for a whole can of stuff.
It is low. And just in terms of price, now, obviously, this is something we're going to be talking about in more detail shortly, but it is the same price as standard Guinness. So I picked this up yesterday in my local Morrison's, and I paid £5 for 4 cans. So that's £1.25 a can. Should we open it up?
I think we should. Yeah. Let's do it. There's quite a satisfying sort of noise it makes when you open it up. It kind of hisses at you and draws air in somehow. It's doing something. Pouring it into the glass, it properly looks like a Guinness.
It really does. It pours like a normal Guinness. It sounds like a normal Guinness, like you say. In terms of kind of like the smell of it, yeah, I mean, that's a typical kind of like roasty, chocolatey kind of touch of sourness, which is exactly what you'd expect from a Guinness.
Yeah, it's very convincing, isn't it, as a standard alcoholic Guinness, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of taste as well, I just had a mouthful. I mean, that tastes really, really close to Guinness. A tiny amount of body missing. Because there's no alcohol in there, and alcohol gives drinks body. But other than that...
Well, I'm completely agreeing with you. I think the taste is spot on. I think they've really captured that kind of hearty taste of a Guinness. Even though it's chilled, even though we got it cold, it kind of feels warm and hearty like Guinness does. But you're right, it is a bit thinner. But I don't know if I mind that, really. It's lacking that body, but it tastes so good. That tastes like a standard Guinness.
No, it's really close. And, you know, the aftertaste kind of lingers quite a lot as well, in a good way. And there's a touch of sweetness there.
Definitely.
they've managed to replicate it, I think, as closely as they possibly could have done, because alcohol is such an important component in beer. It's not just there to make you feel a bit different, in terms of your brain chemistry. It really makes a big difference in terms of mouthfeel, in terms of flavour. If you remove alcohol, it's always going to taste different. But they've done such a good job with this.
Yeah.
In terms of thumbs up, thumbs down, I mean, it's pretty obvious, I think, what we think about it.
Yes.
From my perspective, absolutely thumbs up. I would buy this. I have bought it, and not only to review for this particular podcast today. Yeah. It's lovely. I like it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think it's marketed so much as being Guinness, it's the same. And it isn't quite the same. It is thinner. Being thinner means while it has that hearty taste, it probably doesn't fill you up in the same way. I know I'm splitting hairs on that. Taking the alcohol out does change it enough that it is a slightly different thing. And for my taste, it's slightly sweeter as well.
This is sounding like a thumbs down, I have to say.
Is it though? Because no, I think I really am splitting hairs. I think they're really minor concerns. It's a resounding thumbs up. I think it's superb. I think it absolutely nails it. If anything, I kind of prefer it for not being so thick and hearty. I can see myself dipping into it even more regularly because it isn't such a proposition to take on a meal in itself. I can just have a nice little Guinness and not be full up from it. So yeah, absolutely a thumbs up from me.
Excellent. Okay, so that is a Guinness Zero, 2 thumbs up.
Well, Pete, I think that segues us perfectly into the big question that you wanted to talk about. Why do NoLo drinks cost what they do, or as much as standard alcohol drinks? I don't know, Pete, take it away. Why?
That's a very good question. I suppose the first question is, what is it about NoLo drinks that make people wonder why it costs as much as it does? What is the difference between that and standard drinks? Why do people question this?
My gut tells me that people go, that's, for example, a beer brand that I know, but it doesn't have the alcohol in. It has less in it, so why should it cost as much as it does? Does that make sense?
No, absolutely. There's a slight red herring there in that basically the alcohol isn't a thing that makes alcoholic drinks kind of cost more in itself. Alcohol is almost like a byproduct. It's one that you absolutely want, but alcohol itself isn't expensive to produce. What is expensive is the duty on that alcohol.
Duty being the tax, yeah?
Absolutely. So alcohol duty is a tax that the government charges, and it charges alcohol producers or alcohol importers based on how much alcohol there is in a beer or a wine or spirits or whatever it is. Yeah. And that is the one thing, that's the kind of the big difference between NoLo drinks and standard alcoholic drinks, because this tax is quite substantial. In a minute, we'll do a little quiz as to how much duty you think there is on various kind of sort of supermarket brands, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So again, alcohol duty, it is paid by the producer, so the brewer or whoever makes the gin or the wine company.
Yeah.
When they make it, as soon as it leaves the brewery or whatever, they have to pay the duty on that. Similarly, if people are importing it, as soon as it arrives in the UK, I'm oversimplifying slightly, at that point, the importer has to pay duty.
Okay.
But how much duty? So it is pretty much directly proportional to the amount of pure alcohol there is.
As in like a sliding scale. So the stronger it gets, the more duty you pay.
Yeah, that's oversimplifying it slightly, but that's basically it. So 440ml can of Guinness, it's 4.1% beer. Yep. You'll be paying about £1.25 for a can. How much do you think the duty is on that?
Guinness, £1.25 a can. It's 4.1%. All right. 20p. 25p. The 25p out of that rather than the pound out of that.
Okay, no, fair enough. It is more than that. It is 47 pence.
Okay.
Of that £1.25 that you pay, 47 pence is duty and VAT on that portion of the price. So not the VAT overall, but because duty is paid very early in the chain, essentially by the time it gets to you, you're paying duty and that VAT on that duty. So those are the figures we're going to use. Okay. So that's 47 pence.
Okay. So what is that as a kind of percentage then?
That is 38%.
38%. So it is high when you actually say it like that. It's maybe not petrol price duty high, but that's pretty high, isn't it?
Yes, it's 47 pence for a can of Guinness, 38% of the price. Okay, Budweiser Budvar, so the good Budweiser from the Czech Republic.
Controversial.
It really isn't. So 330ml can of 5% lager. You can pick that up at £1 a can as part of a 6-pack from Tesco. Okay,
so if 4.1% Guinness was 37p?
Yeah, it was 38% the Guinness was.
38%. Yes. Oh, I'm getting so confuzzled. Right. I think 38%, we're going to go to about 42%. So 42p out of that £1 can.
Oh, you're good. It's 43 pence. Oh, very excellent. Well done.
So close.
It is basically proportional. 43p or 43% is the duty that the importers paid when they brought Budvar into the UK.
Yeah.
Next one.
Okay.
Let's go for cider. So a 440ml can of Thatchers Somerset. It's 4.5%. It's cider. You're paying £1.29 as part of a 4-pack.
Okay. I'm going to say similar. So out of £1.29, 40-something p?
24 pence.
Oh, is cider different then?
Cider is different. Still cider up to like 8.4%, or sparkling cider up to 5.5%, which is what this is around about half the duty than beer is, or wine, or spirits.
And is that because Rachel Reeves is just like a massive lover of cider and just go, no, we're not doing that. People need it in their lives.
This goes back quite some time.
Oh, okay.
Like years and years and years. And I mean, we won't go into it now, but regardless, so cider anyway, it's one of the reasons that you can find cheap bottles of kind of like 4 or 4.5%, 2-litre bottles of cider for like £2.50 in the supermarket, is because the duty is so low.
Fair enough, yeah.
So we've done beer, we've done cider. Let's do wine.
Okay.
A normal 750ml bottle of McGuigan Black Label Shiraz. It is 12.5% wine. It's £6.75 bottle.
Yeah.
How much of that is duty?
Well, by my thinking, it would normally be, just to double it. So £1.20?
£3.32.
Oh, man, what? This is like, there's no parity between types of drinks then?
Cider's the odd one out. So essentially, I mean, beer is ever so slightly cheaper than wine and spirits, although there's not a lot in it. It's pretty much proportional. It's 12.5%, 49% of the price of the bottle of wine. I mean, it doesn't matter what the price of the wine is in a sense. If that was a £5 bottle, you'd be paying £3.32. If that was a £33.32 bottle of wine, you'd be paying £3.32. It's only on the amount of alcohol that's in there.
Yeah.
So finally, a bottle of Gordon's gin, a standard 70 centilitres or 700ml bottle of Gordon's gin is 37.5% ABV.
Yeah.
It costs £16 in the supermarket for this bottle. How much of that is duty?
That's 3 times the amount of alcohol in it as the wine, and that was £3 something. So I'm going to go for about a tenner.
Yeah, it's £10.33.
Hey, I kind of got one right. You don't know how good this feels.
You got 2 right. You got the Budvar correct as well. In fact, 2 within a penny. That was excellent.
I'm being harsh on myself there. No, that's incredible. Yeah, it's a lot of money per purchase, isn't it? That's going straight away on tax.
It is. So £16 for a bottle of gin. £10.33 of that is the duty and the VAT on that duty.
Mm.
Now, the reason we've gone over this is to kind of prove a point. The actual cost of making the alcohol is very low, but the duty, the tax on it is considerable. So if you're buying a can of Guinness in the supermarket, Why is it the same price as a can of Guinness Zero? Why are they the same price? 47 pence of that can of normal Guinness is going as duty. Where's that 47 pence in the can of Guinness Zero?
Yes.
When we're looking at the difference in prices between standard and NoLo drinks, I think there's kind of like there's three scenarios in which we notice that. The most egregious one is when you see equivalents in the same place. So like in the supermarket, you're going down the aisle. In my local Morrison's, on the left-hand side, there's Guinness Zero.
Yeah.
Directly opposite is Guinness Standard. They're exactly the same price. And I know that 47 pence on the normal one is going to the government, but that's somehow going to Guinness with Guinness Zero. Why is that? Possibly the worst for this are the spirits again. So I mentioned about Gordon's Gin earlier on.
Yeah.
So Gordon's Gin in Morrison's, just around the corner from me, is £16 for their standard 70 centilitre bottle of gin. You can buy their alcohol-free version for £1 less.
Wow, yeah.
Where's the £9.33 gone in terms of the duty that's been saved?
Yeah.
Rather than being £16, why isn't it £7?
That's it. So it's this kind of issue, isn't it? It's a kind of issue between, is it added value or is it money for nothing? So I don't know, Pete. You've posited a couple of kind of answers, but what is it? Why?
Well, so there's a couple of reasons why NoLo drink's more expensive. Firstly, outside of supermarkets, generally speaking, unless you're like a really big producer, you're generally selling your drinks through specialist retailers rather than through supermarkets.
Yeah.
You've got specialist retailers like Dry Drinker, for example, who sell online. They're not as big as Tesco, obviously. They're not as big as Morrison's or the supermarkets.
Yeah.
Again, I don't want to pick on a particular retailer. This is an indicative example. Their markup is going to be a lot greater than supermarkets are. Supermarkets have razor-thin margins. So if you're looking at something like St. Peter's Golden Ale, in Morrison's, it's £1.50.
Yeah.
But in a specialist retailer, that's going to be £2.79 or thereabouts.
Wow. Yeah.
Massive difference in markup. Similarly with Brooklyn Special Effects, which is a great lager, and I'm sure we'll review it in a future episode. In Morrison's, £1.50. At Dry Drinker, it's £2.52. And so in terms of the kind of perception of how expensive drinks are, unless it's in the supermarket, the markup is always going to be more from the retailer's end. So I think that's something that's quite important to note.
Okay.
Beyond that, if you were to ask the producers themselves of NoLo drinks, how do they justify the cost of it when compared to standard drinks? The implication is, what are you doing with the money that you're saving from beer duty? Where's my £9, Gordon's?
Yeah. Which kind of translates as, why are you being so greedy? Why are you trying to pull a fast one on me?
So the large producers, they'll say something like, there was a lot of research and development went in to producing these beers.
Yep.
And that absolutely was the case for things like Heineken and for Guinness. They put a lot of time and energy into replicating their standard beers in NoLo form. So there's some validity to that.
Yeah.
You've also got things like equipment costs. So if you're brewing a beer and you're then taking the alcohol out, then that's pretty expensive equipment. I mean, it is basically a one-off purchase.
Yeah, sure.
But these are the reasons that they give. Now, I'm a bit sceptical of these because, right, yes, that's true, but are these prices worth 47 pence per can of Guinness when you're making millions and millions of cans? Well, clearly not.
Is there maybe another aspect where it takes quite a long time? A lot of labour, a lot of man hours, a lot of storage maybe to mature it in a different way. I don't know. I'm just spitballing. But is there maybe something else, like another aspect to the production process that could see those kind of prices, or the costs rather, going up because it's just inevitable? It's not bad management. It's just part of the process.
No.
Well, that cleared that up.
There are additional costs to producing a beer when you're brewing the beer, then removing the alcohol. But the amount of these costs, they don't account for the extreme difference in price between a can of Guinness Zero and a can of Guinness once you factor in that 47 pence.
Yeah.
So the costs are going to be, more, fine. There won't be 47 pence a can more.
Fair enough.
So those are the two sort of reasons that the big producers will give. The smaller producers will point to two what I think are more valid reasons. One is the quality of ingredients. So to an extent, if you're producing like a NoLo gin equivalent, the ingredients you're putting in there are probably higher quality than maybe Gordon's will.
Because they've got nowhere to hide? Is that what you mean? Like you're not using the alcohol to mask it?
No. I think it's more about positioning. I just think in order to kind of position yourself or in order to produce something that you're going to be proud of, if you're a small producer, for the sake of not much extra money, get some decent ingredients in there.
Yeah, okay.
I guess there's an argument for there's less of a place to hide. I don't know the technical things beyond that particularly, but I think it's certainly true that a lot of the NoLo producers use better quality ingredients than the kind of the standard or, the macro, the big producers do that you'll find on supermarket shelves, like Gordon's and so on.
Yeah, fair enough, yeah.
I think the bigger argument is just economy of scale.
Yeah.
So small producers cannot produce things as cheaply as large producers can. If you're a big producer, you're going to buy ingredients more cheaply because you're going to be buying more of them. The costs of production itself are going to be lower per litre because you're essentially making bigger batches. Your labour costs will be lower. Your overheads will be lower. Because you're producing more, you can sell at a lower margin per litre as well. So you don't have to make as much money. And that gives you access to supermarkets as well, both in terms of quantity and in terms of the strict cost requirements, the price requirements that supermarkets will have. They don't want to spend a lot of money.
Sure.
This is like a virtuous circle in a sense.
That's literally the phrase I was about to use. And I thought, no, that's too pretentious. But no, you did it. And actually, I think that is the right way of thinking of it because there's like a tipping point, isn't there? Once you get in with the supermarkets, then your scale goes up even more and so on and so on and so on. So it really kind of supports that argument, yeah.
If you're comparing standard drinks to NoLo drinks, you have to compare like to like. So you can't compare something like Lucky Saint to someone like Guinness just because the economies of scale, and particularly NoLo producers which aren't in supermarkets. You have to compare like with like. So compare those kind of NoLo producers with other similar producers. So, for example, small batch standard gin producers, if you look at how much their gins are, you're often talking 30, 35, 40 pounds per bottle upwards. Now, take £10 off that, and you're pretty much where a lot of these NoLo producers are at. So people like Lyre's or Pentire are around sort of 25, 28 pounds.
Yeah.
And they compare to the small batch gin producers in terms of size of batches, quality of ingredients, that sort of thing. So when you're looking at like a Pentire, £28, don't compare it to Gordon's again. It's very much compare them to the 35, £40 bottle small batch gin producers. Yeah. And I think that's valid.
I think that's valid, actually. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me.
And so as I say, large producers always spent so much in R&D, fine, but that much, and ditto with equipment costs. I find those less compelling in terms of reasons. Small producers I find more compelling, the quality of the ingredients and certainly the economies of scale. This is all kind of skirting around what is the main reason that NoLo drinks cost the same as standard drinks.
Okay,
and the reason, now I don't want to give you too much of a lesson on economics, but businesses price their products to maximise profit.
Shock horror. You surprised me, Pete.
Absolutely. So basically, they will charge what they can get away with.
Yes. That's what we've been aiming for. Come on. Let's bring down the system, Pete.
This is it. And I don't even mean that in a particularly negative way. I mean, all businesses work in exactly the same way. They essentially want to make as much money as they can. And if you're a small producer, there's only so much you can make. And so you can afford to price your product fairly high. And as long as you sell all of it, then that's fine. So if people are willing to pay the prices you're charging, then you're charging probably the right amount or possibly even too little. And so, and that's fundamentally what it comes down to. the price of anything isn't just the cost of production plus a set amount. That's not the way any of this works.
Yeah.
If you ask pretty much any producer, including the small ones, and again, I'm not saying this in a negative way, they won't say this. They'll point to things like economies of scale and quality of ingredients. And those are kind of valid points, but they're not the main point, which is consumers are out there and they're willing to pay the same amount at the moment for a NoLo beer as they are a standard beer. And that's fundamentally all there is to it.
And it's kind of an open secret, isn't it? This is it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a reason for this as well, because I think NoLo drinkers, particularly at the moment, I think they're kind of more motivated and they'll pay for like a good product. I think they're less price sensitive than your average standard beer consumer, for example. And I think there's also the same is true for things like the sort of the NoLo spirit equivalents. Clearly there are enough people who are willing to pay £28 for a NoLo version of a gin or a tequila or whatever. And that's fine. And that's all good. And it's all in the eye of the beholder at the end of the day.
Yeah.
If the quality of the product to you is worth the price that they are charging for it, then that's kind of fine.
Yes.
However, don't ever expect prices to go down until supply exceeds demand, basically.
Yeah. I feel a bit like a kind of Marxist Richard Madeley to kind of say, well, big business is bad, small business is good, but the whole system is doomed to screw over the consumer at every turn. I think you're right. I think, of course, they're out to make some money. And when they can, they will price like that. And at the moment they can, because we're going along with it. It's nice to hear you break it down, actually, and kind of spell out what are some of the legitimate reasons. Because it has always been this kind of open question. Why should it? And why does it matter? And I think it matters, like you rightly identified at the beginning, that we have this nagging sense that maybe we are being ripped off. And, if that's true, and it sounds like it is, that's not sustainable, because it will foster a bit of a bad feeling and it will kind of fester over time.
I do think that the bigger brands are the ones who are essentially taking the mix. So, as I say, people like Guinness, where, there is no quote unquote excuse for it, except for the fact that they can get away with it. And that's fine, and as long as there are enough people willing to buy Guinness Zero at the same price as standard Guinness, then they will. I don't blame smaller producers at all. And in fact, one of the sort of the benefits for kind of relatively high prices is that actually it means that smaller producers can enter the market and they can kind of compete, because you can charge higher margins in order so that you can get your business off the ground. So that is a positive side to the high pricing aspect of it.
Well, Marxist Richard Madeley doesn't know what to do with that information, because that's turned the whole thing on its head, that actually, this is a way that the industry is self-regulating and supports the smaller players. Oh, man, I'm all over the place with my loyalties now.
So in conclusion, yes, and so NoLo drinks are expensive compared to the cost of production, generally speaking.
Yeah.
And margins are higher on NoLo drinks than they are on standard drinks, but that's not a bad thing for small producers. We should be wagging our fingers at the larger producers. We are sort of being taken for a ride by them. But yes, I think smaller producers I'm quite happy with. I'm not saying that I'll necessarily go out and spend 30 quid on a NoLo gin. The barrier to entry as a consumer is quite high.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to begrudge them charging that when there's people willing to pay it.
There we have it. I mean, I think that's a pretty comprehensive answer, but I think it's something we're going to keep returning to as the weeks and months go on, because there's clearly a lot in there, and probably even more than we've had time to get into right now. But thanks, Pete. That was a real deep dive there, and I'm going to stick with it. Big business is bad, small business is better, but the whole system is taking us consumers for a ride. Why not? I'm feeling very Marxist today.
Revolution!
Revolution! Okay, now we're going to move on to our second review of the episode. That's Thatchers Zero. So, I've never had this before, Pete. This is a new one to me. And I've got to say right up front, I'm not a big cider drinker. And this is a cider. So it's Thatchers brand. They're based actually in a place called Myrtle Farm in the Mendip Hills in Somerset. So look, let's open it up and let's get tasting, and then I'll give you some of the other stats as we go.
It looks the part.
Certainly does. I mean, it's quite fizzy. It's got good carbonation. Going on the smell. Yeah, I mean, it kind of smells like a cider, not a particularly fruity or funky one.
I'm not getting very much from the smell. A vague kind of fruitiness.
Yeah, now the head's kind of dissipating a bit. I'm not getting loads either. Like I say, I've never tried this before, so this is a brand new one, but it's a little bit lacking. Let's go in for a taste.
Okay. It tastes kind of appley.
Yeah.
Often with the cider, you can taste the cider and there's a hint of apple. For me, this is the exact opposite. It kind of tastes of apple with a hint of cider.
Yes. Yeah, I'd agree with that completely. It is like it's been flipped on its head, or it's standard alcoholic cider that's just had loads of apple juice put into it, because it's pretty sweet.
It is sweet.
But it doesn't have that kind of taste at the back of the throat that cider often has, which actually is one of the things I don't particularly like about cider when I drink a standard alcoholic version.
Mm.
So this is, 0.0% alcohol. They say it's suitable for celiacs, vegetarians and vegans. It's gluten-free. The only allergens they flag up are that it's got some sulfites in, so, you find them in everything.
Yeah, it's very standard.
Yeah. 26 calories per 100 mils, or 6.5 grams of carbohydrates per 100 mils, and 5.3 grams per 100 mils of sugar. So, again, pretty low on sugar, even though it tastes pretty sweet.
Well, no. If you think about that, that's 26 grams in a 500 ml bottle.
Oh, of course, you're absolutely right. Yes, you are.
So that's 6 teaspoons of sugar.
Mm.
Which is fine. I mean, look, I'm not avoiding sugar. If you have a sweet cider, there will be sugar in it.
Yeah. I mean, they describe it as a golden, medium dry, alcohol-free cider. I mean, I would say it's veering more towards a sweet.
Yeah.
They say it's crafted using a selection of cider apples, including Dabinet and Somerset Red Streak. Now, one thing that I noticed that was quite funny, and we will come on to talking about the taste, but we've been talking about cost. And this is completely comparable to standard Thatchers Gold, which is their kind of main Thatchers brand that you get in bottles. Weirdly, on their website, you can buy it in batches of 12 bottles. It's £24.26 for 12 bottles versus £24.27 for Thatchers Gold for 12 bottles.
Saving a penny.
I know. What's that 1p all about? I mean, who's doing that? That's really strange. It just tickled me. I thought it was quite funny.
So, yeah, in terms of the duty on this, it's going to be roughly about 27, 28 pence, something like that for the duty.
Mm.
Okay, interesting. I mean, just looking at the ingredients list on this, I don't really understand where alcohol is supposed to be coming from, because they don't actually mention yeast at all on the ingredients list. It doesn't taste like it's been fermented.
No, it's kind of apple juice with extra sourness or some kind of acidity added to it. It has got a cidery edge to it, but there's definitely something strange going on.
So the ingredients is apple juice from concentrate, water, acid, which is malic acid, and then the antioxidants, which are the sulfite. So, it prevents it from spoiling. I wonder if it's the malic acid that gives it its sort of cidery taste, because I really don't know that this is actually sort of fermented. It doesn't say that it has been fermented and had the alcohol removed.
No.
Occasionally you see that with NoLo versions of some drinks. The ones that I find taste the most realistic tend to be ones that were created as standard and then had the alcohol removed in some way. Yeah. So most beers are like that. Most wines are like that. And certainly the most convincing ones. That doesn't seem to be the case here.
No, it's a funny one, isn't it? And, just to come to the taste, I mean, we've kind of skirted around it with some other things. But, we mentioned there's that slightly cidery smell. We mentioned there's that slightly cidery taste. But it doesn't sit in your throat at all like a cider does. It feels like a fruit juice, and a slightly fizzy one that loses its fizz pretty quick, actually. So not even like an apple ties. I don't know what I think about it, to be honest. There is this nagging sense that it just isn't quite what cider is. More so than I've had with a lot of NoLo beers.
When we're talking about NoLo versions of alcoholic drinks, I would rather it tasted more like the standard version. This doesn't really, to me, generally I would go for drier ciders. I don't mind sweet ciders particularly, but this doesn't really taste like a cider to me. And I think it's kind of all right. I wouldn't be happy paying cider prices for something like this, personally. If this was like half the price, then maybe. Even then, you've always got opportunity cost. So whatever drink you're drinking is at the cost of another drink that you could be drinking.
Yeah.
Even if it was another cider, I wouldn't choose this one. Yeah, I've had nicer NoLo ciders.
Are you going thumbs up or thumbs down?
I am going thumbs down for those reasons.
Fair enough. I'm going to sneak in a cheeky thumbs up because I think it's pretty inoffensive. I think it's quite nice. I completely agree. It doesn't really satisfy in the way that a cider does, but I'm not a massive cider drinker, so maybe I'm just not the best person to choose, whether this is the real deal or not. They've done a pretty good job of balancing the flavours that are there and at least making a quite satisfying or at least quite a tasty drink. Like, I would drink that in a hot summer's day, but thinking really of it as a fruit juice with a bit of fizz, really. So look, I'm going to, just for a little bit of balance, I am going to give it a thumbs up, but it's pretty tentative. Yeah, a tentative thumbs up.
So for our final drinks review this week, we are looking at the Hip Pop Cherry CBD Kombucha.
Easy for you to say.
Indeed. So a little bit out of left field compared to the other drinks we've had, because this isn't a NoLo version of an otherwise alcoholic drink. But like we said before, we're looking at essentially any kind of drinks which are kind of aimed at adults, whether or not it's kind of like, soft or NoLo or whatever it is. So out of interest, Chris, do you know what a kombucha is off the top of your head?
Sort of. I know it's a fermented something, and I know it's a bit funky and can be a little bit kind of spicy, I want to say. I've had it literally once, twice, maybe 3 times, and 2 of those times was courtesy of you. You introduced me to it. So, look, I'm massively an outsider on kombuchas and what they are. I know I'm late to the party. I've heard people talking about them, and I smile and nod knowingly, but I don't know. So, no, fill me in.
That was a very long way of saying no. Okay.
Get used to it, folks. This is what I do.
So, kombucha is a fermented tea drink.
Okay.
Traditionally black tea, although I believe this one also has green tea in it as well. So that's the first type of drink this is a kombucha. The second type of drink this is a CBD drink. Now, I'm not going to ask you what you think that is, so I'm just going to tell you instead.
Yeah.
CBD stands for cannabidiol,
right,
which is essentially the non-active component of cannabis.
So the non-drug version.
Yes, absolutely. Whereas you've got THC, which is the active component or the main active component of cannabis. This is what you might call a functional drink. Now, that kind of category of drinks is something we're going to look at in the future. And in fact, we're going to look at kombuchas in the future as well. But the CBD aspect of this basically means that there's something in it which is supposed to have some sort of psychotropic effect.
Okay.
Although it's not a controlled substance. So this is a kombucha, so it is fermented, but there's no ABV, there's no alcohol amount listed. Maybe there's no legal requirement to put it on there. Perhaps I would have expected it to have said something like, contains less than 0.05%. Before we talk anything more about it, shall we open it up and give it a taste?
Yeah, let's go in. It's an interesting smell. It's kind of fruity, but there's definitely another thing going on. Not quite funky. It's, I don't know what that is.
It's very fruity. It smells sweet. It smells funky. And not in an unpleasant way. And that tastes really, really, really nice. I do like that a lot. Can you get the tannins from the tea there?
Yeah, I am getting that. I really like that. So it is fruity, but yeah, I'm a big tea drinker. I don't drink coffee. I really like tea. And I'm definitely getting those tannins coming through. But there is sweetness in there, and the fruit coming through in the smell and the taste. It's not cloying. It's not like a soda. It's not like a squash either. Interesting. I like it.
I think it's really well balanced. There's enough sweetness in there so that the kind of the fruit flavours kind of bounce off it. And it really smells and tastes of cherry very much. I can't really detect the blackberry personally. To me, it's mainly cherry.
I am getting the blackberry coming through because I think if it was just cherry, it would be a sweeter, almost rounder kind of taste, whereas the blackberry has that almost brambly kind of taste to it and a more earthy, heaty kind of smell that it brings to it, and which is definitely in there.
Worth saying as well, it's actually quite cloudy, which I like. So I've literally upended the entire can into my glass because there is sediment at the bottom, a small amount of sediment, which should be there. And putting that into the glass, pouring all in, it's pleasantly hazy. I think it's a really nice drink.
Yeah, you know what's interesting? Because it's got this kind of sourness to it, it's very Moorish. It has that similar thing that we talked about in the last episode that, you know, a champagne has and Prosecco had quite satisfying, that where it's a kind of dryness on the mouth, it makes you want to drink more. I find myself coming back to this really frequently, and it's making me salivate. It's really nice. Yeah, that works for me.
In terms of the drink itself, in terms of kind of the stats, it's vegan. It is gluten-free as well. Now those things are labelled, but the website confirms both of those things. There's 53 calories in a 330ml can. There's 9.6 grams of carbs, of which 8.6 is sugar. So that's 2 teaspoons of sugar in that 330ml. Ingredients list it's all stuff you recognise, apart from a couple of things.
Well, that clears that up then.
Absolutely. Water, cane sugar, green tea, black tea, the kombucha culture.
Yep.
Then you've got the juices, sour cherry, sweet cherry, blueberry and blackberry juices from concentrate. Natural flavourings, which again, one of these weeks, we will look at what natural flavourings actually means.
Fair enough. Salt and pepper, yeah.
Who knows? It's got CBD in it. It's got 15 milligrams of CBD. And then finally, it's got what they call living cultures, which is Bacillus coagulans, which I kind of looked up and I'm not really sure that it does very much, to be perfectly honest. This is something that we'll cover in our forthcoming kombucha episode.
Yeah, it doesn't sound very appetizing, but these things rarely do they?
No, absolutely. But in terms of actually ingredients, like generally, you know, if you're worried about quote unquote chemicals, there aren't really any in there in the sense of, you know, various kind of like ascorbic acids or anything like that. I think they've deliberately kind of engineered this so that it has as few scary words as possible.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah, which kind of ties into a kind of complaint I have about this.
Okay.
They're not quite marketing it as being healthy, but they kind of are. They don't make any kind of health claims except that they say that it's naturally refreshing, a gut-friendly alternative to artificial sugar-laden fizz.
Yes, I see what you mean. They're definitely positioning themselves as, if you're so inclined to look for the healthy thing, well, here we are, without saying we're healthy.
Yes. So like the term gut friendly, for example,
it
doesn't really mean anything. You know, it's a marketing term. It also mentions things like live cultures without really explaining further, with the kind of the nod and, well, I'm not going to say that they're nodding and winking, but one might imagine someone saying that might nod and wink in terms of, you know, we're not going to tell you it's healthy, but hey, come on, we both know it is.
Yeah.
And similarly, when they mention about how it's infused with CBD for a refreshing moment of calm, and it's kind of not quite saying this is going to have some sort of psychotropic effect.
Yes.
But, you know, sort of ish.
Enjoy your big chill, but we haven't done anything. Yeah.
I must say that I don't mean to pick on hip hop. It's endemic in this kind of...
They're one of many, sure.
Absolutely, absolutely. What it is worth saying is that CBD drinks and kombucha don't have a lot of evidence with regards to health benefits. And I think that's one reason that they aren't claiming health benefits. They're kind of hinting at it.
Yeah, yeah.
So I've actually caught a bit off their website, off their FAQ. Just read that for us. The bit says, why drink CBD kombucha?
There aren't yet any scientific studies that prove why kombucha is good for you, so we don't know whether it's natural vitamins, antioxidants, organic acids, or the living cultures that cause people to come back for more. Hip Pop is one of the only kombucha brands in the world that harnesses a bacteria called Bacillus coagulans, which has undergone rigorous scientific studies. These mighty living cultures are added to every can, plus, in capitals, all the yet unknown benefits of fermented kombucha with all its other wonderful properties. We then add CBD to our kombucha to help you relax and feel naturally calm whilst enjoying a refreshing soft drink. By drinking CBD kombucha, you'll be able to enjoy the potential benefits that both kombucha and CBD have to offer. I see what you mean. Wow. We are skirting the edge of committing to anything there, aren't we? Wow.
It's just a load of, what's the term for it? When you're kind of skirting around and you can't quite say what you want to say. There's a term, and that's basically it.
Which is ironic because you're also doing that in trying to describe it.
I am, absolutely. I'm talking around it. I don't want to pick on hip hop specifically about this. This is only an example of what is absolutely endemic in this part of the industry.
Sure.
And again, it's something that we'll examine in more detail in future episodes.
Let's come back to the drink itself, the taste, because, it comes down to, do we like it? Would we pay for it? Is it a thumbs up or a thumbs down? Pete, you introduced me to kombuchas, so what do you think of this one as a kind of flagship or our very first kombucha that we've reviewed? Thumbs up, thumbs down?
I think it's really, really good. Just for context, because obviously our thumbs up, thumbs down does depend on price to an extent, because, it's whether we would buy it or not. So these in Sainsbury's come in 4 packs for £6, so £1.50 per can.
It's pretty steep actually.
It is quite steep. You can also buy it on their website. You can buy 24 cans for £25, so just over a pound per can, which I think is more reasonable. With that context in mind, I'm going to give it a thumbs up because it's a really nice drink. Thumbs up from me.
I think it is really nice. I think it's got a really interesting balance between sweet, sour, dryness, those tannins coming through. It's quite interesting. It sort of does things in your mouth more than just a soda drink does. So I find it quite an engaging drink, and it makes me want to drink more of it, a bit like how an alcoholic drink does as well. There's stuff in there that kind of lures your palate and feels like you're having something that you wouldn't necessarily have all the time. So yes, it's a thumbs up from me because I think it's really well balanced and I think it works. Thumbs up.
So that is, 2 thumbs up for Hip Pop Cherry and Blackberry Kombucha CBD drink.
Still such a mouthful. So there you have it, folks, the very latest episode of Minus the Hangover, and being that it was completely free to you, the listener, we hope you agree that it was worth every penny. But seriously, thanks for listening, and what an interesting subject to explore, Pete. Dare I say, I think you really masterfully dived in onto why NoLo drinks cost the same as alcoholic drinks, and, slightly mixed messaging coming out of that. Is it big business? Is it small business? Is it the system? There's a lot to unpack.
Smash the system!
The revolution. It started here. Right here, folks. It started here.
Absolutely.
Look, if you've enjoyed it, please do make sure you hit that follow button on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. Please do spread the word. You can find us on X or Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram, Facebook, Reddit, Linktree. We're on all the socials. Just search for @-the-hangover, all one word. And if you've got a question you'd like to put to us or a drink you'd like us to review, please do get in touch. So, Pete, what's in store for next week?
The sort of big question that we're going to be covering is why do we think that NoLo drinks have so massively taken off in popularity these recent years? Now, I know, Chris, this was your suggestion, so give us a little taste of what to expect.
Oh, see, now who's labouring these drink metaphors, eh? Well, look, I wanted to touch on this as a subject because I think it's pretty relevant at the moment, actually. Not just because that the boom in popularity of NoLo drinks is partly why this podcast exists. I mean, it is part of the reason, of course. But because I think it reveals a fair bit about our society's changing attitude to pub culture, to health, to how we spend our time and our money, even revealing some pretty major generational shifts. I also think it's fascinating how the drinks industry pushed back against the NoLo revolution for so long, only for so many brands like Guinness, like Thatchers, as we've just seen, to really see the NoLo light and ultimately nail their colours to the NoLo mast with full gusto, as they now have done. So, look, all in all, I think there's plenty for us to sink our teeth. Oh, God. Stop me with these tortured metaphors. Just tell us what... I know, it's too much. Look, Pete, tell us what drinks we'll be reviewing next week.
We're going to look at Lucky Saint Lager. We've done their IPA in our first episode, but we're looking at their lager. We're going to be looking at a low-alcohol red wine, yet to be determined. And we're also going to look at a tonic, specifically a Fever Tree tonic as well.
Well, there you go. That's next week. But for now, I'm going to finish off these really quite lovely drinks we've opened and literally and metaphorically wash these terrible drinking metaphors away. Look, see, I can't even stop myself when I try.
Nice.
So, before I embarrass myself any further, thanks very much for listening to Minus the Hangover with me, Christophe Phillips.
And with me, Pete Mason.
And we hope you can join us again next time. Till then, have a great week and enjoy whatever drink takes your fancy, minus the hangover. Thanks a lot, folks. Cheers then. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.
Hello again, and yes, once again, your ears are not deceiving you. We are back at the end of the episode with that little segment we like to call After Hours. And once again, we're going to be looking back at the episode and anything else that's come up in the space of time since we recorded the episode. Because, well, spoiler alert, these episodes don't go out live. We record them a little bit ahead of time, and then there is a little bit of a lag before we release them. But speaking of releasing them, well, look, the first episode's been out a few weeks now. It's very exciting. We've been getting some really... I know, exactly. Pete, we did it. We got it over the line. Yeah,
it took a while. We got there in the end.
It did take a while. But actually, look, I've had some really lovely feedback, and I'm curious, Pete. How's it been landing with your circle of friends?
Yeah, well, no one's been rude to my face yet, so that's all been good. Really nice feedback, and I've had some genuine questions from people that prove they were listening as well. Ooh. They didn't just stick it on in the background and then ignore it entirely.
It feels in a way like we've hit the ground running, and we're very enthused, very excited to be continuing as we are, which is all good. But it also means one other thing, and this means we've had some producers get in touch with us. We've got some deals happening in the background, but we are open to other producers. And what I mean by that is, people that make the drinks. They can send us those drinks. And some of them have got in touch saying, please do review our drinks. Well, if you want that to happen, you've got to get in touch and you've got to send it to us. That would be really nice. Saves us buying it, and it means that it is going to get onto the list of drinks we review ahead of other ones that we do have to buy.
We're not obviously guaranteeing positive reviews at all. Genuinely, no, but that's not a joke. Genuinely, not in the slightest.
No, genuinely.
Do get in touch. So you can find us on the socials, or you can email us, hello@minusthehangover.com. The other upshot, as well, is that one thing we've not actually said on air yet, as it were, is that we are a fortnightly podcast. We're not weekly, we're not monthly. If you find us on the podcast apps, it will say fortnightly. I don't believe we've said in either our first or this current episode that we are actually fortnightly. So just so everyone knows.
But here we are. That's what we're doing. And fortnightly means bi-weekly, but in the sensible way of being 2 weeks, not twice a week, which is that confusing Americanism to do with it. And we're releasing on Thursdays as well, just so you know. So it's coming out on Thursdays. Time is a little bit indeterminate at the moment.
Au contraire.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
6 a.m. So if anyone has a morning commute, unless you're literally getting up at the crack of dawn, then hopefully it will be in your podcast player, should you choose to subscribe to us, ready in time for that. So around 6 o'clock, 6 a.m.
There you go. So revealing there that Pete does all that techie stuff and I don't know. There you go, as if that wasn't obvious already. Okay, there's another thing I was going to bring up, and this has come out of one of our listeners getting in touch going, was a little bit confused about something that was mentioned in last episode's After Hours. And that was to do with how during the Meraki Berry Nice review, you had poured your drink out and I'd poured mine out, but not very well. And I couldn't see that it was really like a fruit smoothie. Now, what's been flagged up to us is that how could we not see it? Were we not in the same room? So another spoiler, we record this remotely from each other. It's a bit of a weird one. We are not in the same room.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty common setup, to be honest. I mean, a lot of podcasts are recorded remotely, unless you've got massive budgets. But even then, some of the really big budget ones, like The Rest is History, for example, they're recorded remotely. You've got, the other ones like The Rest is Entertainment, which are recorded, I think, generally in the same studio.
Yeah, I think so.
It's quite a common thing. Normally, we don't have to mention it, but obviously, if we're describing our own drinks to the other person and we don't quite understand, that's why. Basically,
we're not in the same room. We're not even in the same town. I'm in Worthing, you're in Hastings. We're separated by, a sort of dividing line of Sussex, East and West Sussex, but we're not going to go to war over it. Okay, I just want to give a shout out to the inestimable Tony Fox for pointing that out.
Thank you, Tony. One other thing I wanted to talk about, the episode that you just listened to, we were talking about Guinness, and Guinness prices have changed ever so slightly. So at the time, Guinness Zero and Guinness Standard in the supermarket were exactly the same price.
Yeah, that's right.
Both have actually gone up in price, but the Guinness Zero has gone up slightly less. So there's now something like an 11 pence difference per can.
Wow.
That does not account for the 47 pence difference in terms of duty and VAT on that duty. Yeah. So, Mr. Guinness is still kind of like, doing us out of over 35 pence, quite frankly, per can, once you factor that in. But I just wanted to point that out. The price difference has narrowed ever so slightly, but still not enough. So I'm going to wag my finger still at Guinness.
Okay, there was one other thing I wanted to bring up as well. After the episode, I did what I'd done previously, and I finished off the rest of the can of Hip Hop, which has tea in it. It's made, kombucha is made from tea. I really, really struggled to sleep. Now, I'm not saying they've added any extra caffeine. I don't think they have. It's not even listed as being something that's in it, that there is caffeine. But of course, it is made from tea. So maybe I'm being dim. Maybe I just didn't think about it. But I think it's worth flagging up that if caffeine is a thing for you, that it might stop you sleeping. It certainly stopped me sleeping.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the drink anyway, because obviously it's a CBD drink and it's kombucha, like you say, it's got tea in. Yeah, like you, I think it's probably caffeinated. It doesn't list the amount of caffeine in there, but it's got CBD in as well. Did you notice any difference from having that CBD? It was, I think, 15 milligrams.
I didn't, but to be honest, I don't know what I would be looking out for, and I don't remember well enough noticing anything other than just being frustrated I couldn't sleep. So I wasn't particularly paying attention to it. That's
interesting. No, because I didn't notice any difference. I've had a couple of CBD drinks now, and I've never really noticed any difference in terms of, how I feel in my head. These are kind of functional drinks, so they're supposed to do something. And obviously, like anything, CBD is going to affect different people differently. Like caffeine doesn't affect me as much as it affects you, for example. Right. When I talked about the price of the hip hop kombuchas, I gave everyone the price, when you buy it straight from them as a subscription, of what I thought their kombuchas cost, but all of them do, apart from the CBD one. So It's about £1 a can for the normal kombucha, but it works out as being £1.69 a can on the subscription for the CBD one. So again, just a little kind of errata for the episode, but it does actually kind of like make me think, why get it on subscription when you can get it from Sainsbury's for like 19 pence less per can? Is there anything else you wanted to talk about? I think I've got one thing more.
Well, there was one thing. You mentioned this to me. We hadn't clarified which red wine we were going to be reviewing.
So one of the nice bits of feedback that I got from someone who clearly had listened to the podcast, so thank you very much, Andy.
Top marks.
He wanted to know what we were going to drink next time, and he liked the fact that we told people that in 2 weeks' time, this is what we're going to be drinking, so that he could drink it along with us as well.
Ah, yeah.
So next episode, we are going to be drinking BIG Zero Shiraz, which is available from most supermarkets, I want to say.
Yeah, I picked mine up from Sainsbury's, so I've got that.
The other thing I just want to reiterate, or at least kind of clarify, is that we're going to do a Fever Tree tonic, and it is the standard tonic, not the Mediterranean one, which I have not yet had. But it's a standard Indian tonic water. Oh, just one other thing I want to quickly mention about the hip hop CBD kombucha. Mm-hmm. Now, we actually talked quite a lot about CBD because there's actually quite a lot to talk about CBD. Yeah. We already mentioned just now that you don't know if it had an effect on you. I don't think it had an effect on me. Does it have an effect on people? What are the effects? There's a lot to this. And in fact, there's so much that I'm going to dedicate a whole kind of episode to this. And also some peculiarities with the way that the CBD drinks manufacturers are advertising them.
There's a lot to it, and it's worth giving it the proper time. But we'll get to that, and that'll be in a few episodes' time, maybe.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Well, there you go. I think that's it. I think that's After Hours. I think we've done another episode, and we hope you've enjoyed it. Enjoy whatever it is that you're drinking, minus the hangover, and we'll see you soon. Take care now.
Cheers, everyone.
Bye-bye.